Good afternoon and evening, everybody. It is David Schlotthauer here, keeping an eye on the latest ENSO conditions in the Central and Eastern Pacific, as some of the models have been uptrending significantly on the potential for a very strong to possibly Godzilla El Nino yet again in 2023 into 2024 of the winter, when El Ninos typically peak. So these ENSO updates are released every Monday on my YouTube channel, as the latest NOAA releases their ENSO forecast and the evolution, status, and predictions of what's to come as far as the latest update on ENSO, which is a warm ENSO, which is El Nino. So this is April 3rd, 2023, which is today's date. So we're going to be looking at the summary, the recent evolution and current conditions, the latest Oceanic Niño Index, which is the ONI, and we're going to be looking at other things in this update like I did in my last couple of updates. So as always, they are still keeping a final La Nina advisory. Neutral conditions are being observed, but still in all, we're still seeing some effects remaining from La Nina with the upper level circulation. And it kind of goes on with this. So that's why the NOAA has kept the La Nina advisory, but this is the final one and should be allowed to expire here within the next month or so. So as always, we have had positive sea surface temperatures that have really developed rapidly since early February, and we still have above normal sea surface temperatures from roughly about 130 degrees west longitude all the way back to 80 degrees west longitude, which is on the Central America coast, which is Peru, that kind of area. So still above average sea surface temperatures that do remain right now. And this, again, indicates that El Nino is beginning to develop, and it is likely to intensify based on a lot of model guidance, including the one that I'm about to show you here in a little bit. So our Nino region sea surface temperature departures, recent evolution. So what does this mean? And everybody's probably asking me in my previous videos. So each of these areas here on the screen indicate different regions of your Nino index. So the Nino 4 index, which is right here, is this highlighted yellow area on the map here. There's a little thumbnail showing you that. The El Nino or Nino 3.4 index is this boxed outlined area. Okay, you can see that. And then the red area is your Nino 3 index. And then, of course, the white boxed area here on the far eastern Pacific is your Nino 1+2 area. So we can see that there has been some significant warming in the last, since basically mid-February, as we can see here on the latest thumbnails. Everything is going up, which means the sea surface temperatures are changing for the warmer conditions in the Central and Eastern Pacific. And this is because the trade winds have relaxed. And I'll show you the Southern Oscillation Index, or the SOI for short, here in just a little bit. So sea surface temperatures in the tropical Pacific during the last 4 weeks have been quite warm, anywhere between 0.5 degree all the way up to as much as 4 to 5 Celsius above normal. These are departures from normal. These are not actual sea surface temperatures, so you don't need to think that, oh, it's 32 degrees at the equator, roughly located at 100 degrees, which is the international date line. These are departures from normal. So this is warmer than normal. This is below average or near average for this time of the year. This is from March 5th through April the 1st, which is a couple of days ago. So global sea surface temperatures, this is just a wider map showing the entire world, a Mercator map projection. No, Earth is not flat. It's actually round, but it's neat how we could actually stretch these maps out, and we can see from 30 degrees east longitude to 30 degrees west in longitude. Really cool to see that, okay? And so we can clearly get an idea what we're seeing as far as the Nino index. We're going to skip this because some of this is kind of the same thing. This is just a weekly basis showing you how sea surface temperatures have changed. We'll be looking at a more detailed graphic here in just a little bit, how things have indeed changed in the last few weeks or so. So we're going to go down here and look at the changes in sea surface temperatures in the last 4 weeks. And we can see sea surface temperatures in the far eastern Pacific, like right along the Peru coast of Central America, have warmed up pretty significantly, 2 degrees Celsius within the last week or so. So that is pretty significant, okay? And then some warming has taken place here, or cooling, I should say, just west of this anomalous warm patch of significance there, as some of the trade winds have returned and have been able to upwell whatever cooler water is left. The thermocline index is also dropping significantly. It is headed down into the warm phase, which is into the negative territory. That is important because that means a lot of the water below the surface is warmer than average. And this usually tells us what might be happening in the next month or so. So Central and Eastern Pacific upper ocean heat, okay, or not really heat, but how warm, actually this is upper ocean heat, my bad. And so when you get the orange colors, okay, so we can see sea surface temperatures were below average here. They went above average here, and now they have dropped here in late summer into early to mid fall. Then they kind of warmed up a little bit throughout the winter months, and then now they're really going up here as of early April. So what this means is sea surface temperatures below the surface or subsurface are warmer than average, not just at the skin. Everyone thinks that El Nino develops right below the surface, right? Well, you could have warmer than average temperatures below the surface, but not make their way exactly to the skin, which would otherwise mean an El Nino. These are below, the skin of the ocean. And this tells us that, are they warmer than average? If they are, then that's going to work their way up to the surface eventually, like we can see here. So subsurface temperature departures in the equatorial Pacific have remained above normal, and I mean pretty significantly. We can see in early February we have cooler than normal anomalous subsurface waters below, again, the skin, and then they have warmed up significantly. So now we're transitioning into a really warm subsurface phase here, especially over the eastern Pacific. Look at those waters, definitely above normal, anywhere between 4 to 6 Celsius below or above normal. Sorry, my words are mixed up today. And then, of course, well above average here in much of the central and western Pacific, below the surface. Not at the surface, but below it. So imagining if our trade winds fall apart, this is all going to warm up eventually, and that's going to really lead to a strengthening El Nino. It's all about those trade winds, the pressure dipole index that we also look at. We're going to skip this, but this is really all you need to look for here is anomalous. Westerly wind anomalies, or wait, no. These are, 850 millibar winds are near average for this time of the year. So not above or below average. Upper level wind patterns are definitely kind of getting more easterly. So the Walker circulation is beginning to weaken and reverse. And when we see easterly winds at the 200 millibar level, that usually means a slackening or reversal in the trade winds at 850 millibars. So when we look at this really quickly, we can see weekly heat content evolution. Definitely a huge Kelvin wave is on its way into the eastern Pacific, and this will likely forebode a rapid warming in the central and western or eastern Pacific, and usually means that El Nino is trying to develop. Not only that, we are also seeing stronger than normal trade winds temporarily, but we're already starting to see some reversal in the trade winds already in the western Pacific. This is going to slosh again eastward with time eventually. That's what the prediction really calls for. So when we look at the upper level, 200 hectopascals or 200 millibar level, we can see that upper level conditions, we have a lot of sinking. That's in the brown and yellow colors. And then in the green and blue colors, we have a lot of rising motion in the atmosphere. Why is this important? Because wherever you have rising motion, you get convergence. At the surface, you get lower pressure. So this is on its way already eastward in the next couple of weeks, and we should start to see another reversal and weakening of our trade winds in that amount of time. Probably by mid to late April, we'll start to see another huge reversal take place. All right, so this is pretty much self-explanatory. If you guys want to look at this, there will be a link in the description below this video leading to the latest PowerPoint presentation evaluation of the latest ENSO outlook from the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. As of right now, they still have negative 0.7. They have not filled in any of these boxes yet, but they should start filling one here in within the next 1 or 2 days or so. And this is going to probably be more on the neutral side than in the negative side. So there is still a 60% chance of El Nino conditions that will likely develop by late summer, early fall of this year, and a 60 to 65% chance of El Nino conditions possibly strengthening into late fall and early winter. Perhaps most of the winter, we're going to have likely an El Nino type scenario with less than 30% chances of a neutral phase of the ENSO and a very low chance of La Nina conditions. We just got done with La Nina. I don't think that's going to come back anytime soon just yet. There's no indications, at least, of it occurring. So this right here will relate to with what I show you all in the next couple of tabs here right after this PowerPoint. But self-explanatory, sea surface temperatures are likely to be on the rise. They are on the rise, and they will continue to climb throughout the latter part of the spring into summer and into early fall, as we can see here. Sea surface temperatures anywhere between 1 to maybe 1.5 degrees Celsius above average. Now, again, that's probably not much, right? That doesn't seem like a lot, but it is. In a huge Pacific basin, it means a lot. It will change the weather pattern eventually. And when that happens, areas that get drought will get a lot of heavy rainfall. Areas that get heavy rainfall typically during the La Nina will likely get some drought conditions going for the summer into fall. All right, so that's a look at this, but more detail kind of right after this. So we basically talked about that. Now, what I just showed you in the PowerPoint is very similar here, but only in more detail, because I wanted to show you all how this has changed in the last 3 forecasts. So this is as of April 3rd. That was updated today, and the initial conditions were from March 4th through March 13th. Okay, so this is an old image, but I want to compare with you all that how things are now versus what they were like before and how that led to some bigger changes. So we thought back in early to mid-March that El Nino was probably going to be in the moderate to strong category, right? Between maybe 1 to 1.5 Celsius, right? Now, some of the members showed that maybe 2 Celsius of sea surface temperatures above the departure normal average, correct? Most of them were going for at least a weak to moderate El Nino kind of state. But look at what has changed in the last couple of forecasts, including this latest forecast from March 24th through April the 2nd. Yeah, quite the difference. Literally in a month time frame, we went from maybe seeing sea surface temperatures of about 1 to maybe 1.5 Celsius above normal to now possibly getting those sea surface temperatures perhaps 2 Celsius above normal now, with some of the members that are going way up here to almost 3 Celsius above normal. Now, while 3 Celsius does not seem like a whole lot, well, you put that in perspective from the international date line south of Hawaii into the eastern Pacific, those are sea surface temperatures of about, say, 30 to 31 Celsius. Okay, actual sea surface temperatures. That's a big deal. That is going to change the weather pattern temporarily enough to where, yeah, the jet stream is very strong in the northern hemisphere for the fall and winter months. And yes, if we get something that is this strong, you could bet on some very intense rainfall across the United States. And yes, if this coincides well with hurricane season, it might be enough to really make a dent in the Atlantic hurricane season in itself, because, yeah, you get an El Nino this strong, you're going to have a lot of wind shear over the Caribbean, over much of the main development region, and hurricane season is probably, in my prediction, is going to be very low this year. Probably about 9 to 12 named storms at the very most. I'm not betting on a hyperactive season. We all thought last year was going to be hyperactive. It kind of ended up that way, but not like what forecasters thought. So we're going to be on the low side. And with this being in mind, we're probably going to have a below average hurricane season for the Atlantic and for even the Gulf of Mexico, and a well above average, near hyperactive season perhaps coming in for the Eastern and Central Pacific, including for the Western Pacific, because of our pattern that we're transitioning into. Okay. So the Southern Oscillation Index is a measurement of pressure differences between Indonesia and the Indian Ocean, including for Australia, right? Versus if you're in the Central and Eastern Pacific. So hopefully this makes pretty good sense. I will kind of get a little snapshot here off the GFS model in just a bit. So right now, to put this in a simple perspective, we're in a negative phase of the Southern Oscillation Index in the last 30 days. However, we are still above normal. Now, just below La Nina thresholds in the last 90 days, as we can see here. So what this is telling me is the pressures over Tahiti, which is in the Central Pacific, are actually becoming more lower than average, okay? So usually they're between 1,011 to 1,014 millibars, right, over Tahiti. And usually they're 1,006 to 1,007 millibars over Darwin. But when this pattern gets reversed, where we get lower than normal pressures over Tahiti and higher than normal pressures over Darwin, Australia, the trade winds can reverse and weaken significantly. What does that allow? Well, that allows the warm, nice water over the Western Pacific to slosh and kind of creep eastward into the Eastern Pacific. And what that does, well, you get an El Nino. That's simple. You don't get a lot of upwelling of cold nutrient water, I should say, off the Peru coast, which would likely forebode a La Nina. So with that being said, this is negative, and that allows this to happen. We got an El Nino that is in the early stages of developing, including a strong negative PDO. As you can see along the Californian coast, we got well below average sea surface temperatures of about 1 to 2 degrees Celsius. On the bottom side of that, we have warming sea surface temperatures right off the Peru coast in Central America, right off the coast of central Mexico. So this is going to allow, again, for lower than normal pressures to develop here. That's going to help slacken and reverse the trade winds and allow some of these westerly wind anomalies to propagate eastward with time. And what that does, that makes El Nino that much stronger. All right, but it'll be interesting what happens to the Atlantic in the next few months, because yeah, we are coming close to hurricane season, which begins in roughly about a couple of months from today's date. All right, so now before I do end it, I wanted to show you guys again the tropical tidbits here, because this is very important. That I wanted to show you the pressure patterns, why this is important. So as you can tell, we have kind of a Madoki effect here with pressure lower here, lower over here. But as we go forward in time, we can see the pressures when this all loads. You can see what all is going to happen. The pressures drop here in the Central and Eastern Pacific. And when that happens, well, your trade winds are much weaker than normal, and we can really see the pattern evolve very nicely with perhaps maybe some really strong westerly winds here going all the way out into the 180 degree longitude line, which is the international date line, roughly speaking, not exact. And that will really help, again, to push this warmer water eastward with time. And that's going to really kickstart El Nino conditions. So that's what we have going on right now as far as our pressure forecast, with lower than normal pressure patterns that are anticipated. One other thing is the CFS really illustrating just how strong El Nino might end up being this fall and winter. Check this out. Really, really strong. Up inwards of 5 Celsius out here in perhaps the Central and Eastern Pacific. So this could be a really big deal if this actually happens. That coinciding with a somewhat warmish phase, maybe a neutral phase of the PDO, could really mean a huge amount of rainfall and stormy weather across the West Coast for this winter and fall, all the way into the deep south and even the southeastern U.S. So we definitely got to watch this. Get ready, Australia, for significant droughts perhaps because of what may be coming. Also in India, your monsoon season could be very limited this year because of strengthening El Nino conditions, just depending on how quick it develops and how quick it could actually change the atmosphere, could really have a detrimental, horrible impact on agriculture over here in India. One last thing is the subsurface temperatures, just an animation showing you all how this has changed since early February. So we can see some big warming in the subsurface in the Eastern Pacific, huge warming, of course, remaining intact over the Western Pacific, just below about 100 meters. And we can see it down here, the actual sea surface temperatures nearly at average, or not actual at average, but this is, what word am I looking for? David, wake up here. So we got 30 Celsius right now. Let's see if that actually sloshes eastward, because if it does, wow, we're going to be talking about a very strong El Nino perhaps by this fall. So this is kind of a look at what is going on. All those links, by the way, will be in the description below this video. So make sure you do check them out when you're done watching this video. But otherwise, that is going to sum it up for today's ENSO evolution, recent evolution, current status, and predictions from the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. Every Monday, I will be updating you all on this. When this is released, fresh from the hot press from the oven, I will give you some very detailed updates, all right? But anyways, thank you all for watching this. Share, like, and subscribe, and I will see you back here tomorrow with more updates on local weather conditions happening across the United States.